The story of the British 5 pence coin of 1980 begins long before that specific year because its roots stretch back through centuries of British monetary development. The 5p coin that circulated in 1980 was part of a long journey of design reform, decimalization tradition, and economic change. To understand the 1980 5 pence piece, we first step back to the era when Britain still used the old pounds, shillings, and pence system, a monetary structure that had existed for many generations. This system divided the pound into 20 shillings and each shilling into 12 pence, creating a total of 240 pence to the pound. Among the denominations circulating during that time was the shilling, a silver-colored coin that had been familiar to the public for decades. The modern 5 pence coin, introduced in the late 20th century, was directly descended from this historic shilling, and the 1980 issue is a continuation of this legacy. By the mid-20th century, Britain began to realize the need to simplify its currency. The older system was difficult for commerce, accounting, and education. A major shift came with the decision to decimalize the currency and create a new logical system based on 100 pence to the pound. The process of decimalization culminated in 1971 when the United Kingdom officially adopted the new structure. Among the new denominations introduced was the 5 pence coin, which replaced the shilling in both value and familiar use. Because of this continuity, older citizens in the 1970s often referred to the coin as a shilling for many years after decimalization. The early 5 pence coins, including the one struck in 1980, retained much of the shilling's physical identity, being of similar size and weight, making the transition easier. The 1980 5 pence coin belongs to the first generation of decimal 5p pieces, which were issued between 1968 as pre-decimal training coins and 1990. Before the redesign that came later, these early coins were heavier and larger than the modern 5p pieces used today. The coin, minted in 1980, carried the second major portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by the sculptor Arnold Machin. This portrait shows the Queen wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara and remained one of the most recognizable royal images for decades. The inscription around the portrait read, Elizabeth II, Dei Gratia, Regina, Fidei, Defensor affirming her role, and title. This obverse design remained consistent through many years, giving the 1980 coin a familiar royal identity. Turning to the reverse, the 1980 5 pence coin continued to use the crowned Scottish thistle design created by Sir Noel Mackinnon. The thistle is a national emblem of Scotland, and its presence symbolized the unity and heritage of the nations forming the United Kingdom. The crown above the thistle added an additional message of monarchy stability and tradition. The reverse also displayed the denomination 5 pence, marking clearly the value of the coin within the decimal system. The design chosen for the early series of decimal coins reflected a strong desire to honor the individual nations of the UK, and the 5 pence coin's thistle stood proudly as part of that symbolic program. Minting conditions in 1980 were influenced by the economic environment of the late 1970s and early 1980s. Britain was experiencing inflation, industrial change, and political shifts under the government of the period. Despite these circumstances, the Royal Mint continued to produce circulating currency with high technical standards. The 5 pence coin of 1980 was struck in cupronickel, a durable alloy of copper and nickel that had long been favored for British silver-colored coins. The metal gave the coin a bright and resilient finish, maintaining its appearance even after extensive use in daily transactions. These coins were minted at the Royal Mint's facility, which by that time had recently moved to its modern location in Llantrisant, South Wales, after centuries in London. The relocation marked a new era for British coin production, and the 1980 5p coin stands as one of the early products of this newer minting era. Throughout the year 1980, the 5 pence coin was widely used in everyday life. It could be found in vending machines, bus fares, public telephone shops, and markets across the country. the purchasing power of a 5-pence coin in 1980 was significantly greater than it is today, making it useful for small snacks newspapers and other low-cost items. People carried several 5p coins in their pockets and purses, and the coin became a routine part of daily economic activity. Its familiar size and weight were often recognized by touch alone, something that changed later when the coin was reduced. In the larger narrative of UK coinage, the 1980 5-pence coin sits at an important midpoint. It represents the early decades of decimal coinage, while also standing close to the major changes that would happen in 1990, when the Royal Mint introduced a smaller, lighter 5-pence coin. The older, larger type, including the 1980 issue, was gradually withdrawn from circulation during the early 1990s and replaced by the modern form. The result is that coins from the 1980 generation hold both nostalgic and historical value to collectors since they capture an era that has since passed. Collectors today view the 1985 pence coin as a piece of decimal history. While it is not considered rare in circulated condition, it has significance as part of a complete decimal collection. The coin also attracts interest because it reflects the portrait style, minting standards, and artistic choices of its time. Uncirculated examples, especially those preserved in mint sets, hold greater value and provide a clear look at the visual quality intended by the Royal Mint. The coin's connection to the shilling also adds an interesting link to earlier centuries of British currency, making the 5p coin of 1980 both modern and historically rooted. As we extend this narrative for an in-depth documentary, the story of the 1985 pence coin broadens into discussions of the British economy during that decade. The evolution of Royal Mint technology, the cultural meaning of royal portraits on coins, the symbolism of national emblems, and the public experience of living through decimal change. The introduction of decimal currency required education campaigns, advertisements, posters, and wide public communication, which became an important moment in British social history. People had to learn how to think in tens and hundreds, rather than in 12s and 20s. Newspapers of the era included conversion tables, shops displayed dual-priced labels, and schools prepared lessons on the new system. The 5-pence coin was among the easiest to accept because of its connection to the shilling, giving older citizens a sense of continuity at a time of major change. The significance of the thistle design also opens a door to explore Scotland's place within the United Kingdom, the heraldic traditions of the British Isles, and the wider artistic approach taken in the early decimal series. The thistle, topped with a crown, symbolized strength, endurance, monarchy, and unity. It linked modern money with centuries of national iconography and served as a reminder that even a small coin can carry deep cultural stories. As the decade progressed, the 5p coin of this size continued to circulate, but economic conditions were shifting. Prices were rising, and the needs of daily commerce were changing, leading eventually to a decision to reduce the physical size of smaller denominations to match their declining purchasing power. The 1980 coin becomes a snapshot of the period.